Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again for another episode of the 247 Real Talk podcast. I hope you guys have been great since we last spoke. I know that there's a lot of tension in the air as we ramp up to just about 2 weeks short of Election Day. I thought about many topics we could talk about in this episode, but we're going to talk a little bit about elections. Again, I hope not to make it long, but I feel like there's nothing else we can talk about right now. And I'll just tell you a little bit too about my upcoming surgery, just a quick tidbit. And we'll be on our way. So sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. A few things before I get into the meat of this episode. First of all, I want to say, give a shout out and say a big hello and send blessings to a guest that's been on here twice. We promised that he would be on the show every year. I have not been able to get him on the show this year, but you'll remember his name is Terry Tucker. He talked about his journey with cancer. I think he's told me that he's about finished writing his second book that will be released in 2025. So even though we failed to keep our promise and have him here for the third year consecutively, I'll let all of you know who will follow that episode that he is still doing well. He's still responding well to treatment. He was in a trial, he told me today, that ended in 2022. But the cancer medication has been helping him, and so the company has agreed to continue to provide him with the medication. He's a man of God, a man of faith, and with incredible challenges, he's still here today. So I plan to respond to him again tomorrow and see, as soon as I'm better, when he could be back on this show to inspire us at a time when this world needs inspiration. Moving on to my journey. I told you every week I'd give you a little update, so there's not much of a big update tonight. I'm recording, today is Wednesday, October 23rd. So in 6 days is the 29th, which is next Tuesday. So this time next Wednesday, I should be back home. I haven't spent the night in the hospital. Hopefully pain meds keep allowing me to rest to a certain extent and starting the journey to rehabilitation. I don't know what to expect. I've spoken to a lot of people about knee replacement surgery. People have varying levels of arthritic decay in their bones and to the extent of which how invasive the surgery had to be. Mine is top and bottom being replaced, which I think is normal for knee replacement surgery. I don't think they really know how much of the bone they're going to cut as yet, but God willing, I'll be here to tell you, much about it after I am able to sit here again. I was thinking today that I said that I would give you replays, which I will, while I'm away from the microphone. But part of me wants to see if I have enough time in what's been a crazy schedule now to come on and maybe record next week's episode early. No promises, but I'd love to be able to do that. Only because this is such an important time in history, and I feel like when the doctor said that I needed to have the surgery as soon as possible, and they gave me the first free open date of October 29th from my surgeon, I never stopped to think about elections, right? I was thinking about my health. I was thinking about the urgency, the pain I'm in every day. Right now, it's even worse because a week before the surgery, so we're in this week before the surgery, I can take no medications. The only thing I can take, if it gets really that bad and I'm going out my mind with pain, is Tylenol. No pain meds, nothing strong, no vitamins, no allergies, nothing. And so it's going to be an interesting week because I have so much to do to wrap up. We keep our Christmas decorations in a storage up in the air in an attic space. I have to get them down somehow, so that while I'm recuperating, we can have Christmas, right? The tree can go up, the kids can be happy. Not sure what's going to happen to the decorations outside the house this year because I don't think I can do that. So anyway, that's where my journey is right now, and I'm assuming unless I decide to really push it and record another episode, the next time we speak, I would have had the surgery and I'll be telling you all my personal experiences and details. Now, moving on real quick, I've already spent almost 7 minutes on the intro. A few things are bothering me. We know if you're someone that's spiritual, someone who pays attention to the Bible, someone who has looked at the journey of this world, that times of great distress, times of evil reigning will come as the world goes through its phases towards its end. But and some generation has to be the one to deal with that. Growing up as a kid, I would have never thought it would be mine. I'm not sure it is either, but I'm telling you the way I'm feeling. When I think about things that we have heard along the last few months with, like, let's talk about Project 2025, not in detail, but its concept. As I sit and ponder what some people want to do, when you talk about things like getting rid of certain terms and certain approaches in our lives, equality, you can't help but think that there's a part of our society that has basically said that people of color, women, people of different sexual orientation and preferences have come too far. We've gained too much. So it's time for them to change the world, because what's happening is, even though it's slow, they see us as catching up. When would you think that in 2024 we have bold white supremacy groups, we have a boldness of racism and prejudice, and if you look carefully, a certain amount of segregation, even those things were abolished a long time ago. I worry that not only my struggle will get harder, but think about our children and our grandchildren. Do they want to erase history in schools so that when they do this all over again, it'll appear like it's the first time it ever happened? My theory is they want to erase history from schools because it has followed from generation to generation, the truth. And then the more that people become aware of their history, like Generation Z, it is harmful to those who are perpetrators of those actions and who still celebrate those actions. When people look, and you can look at someone in 2024 and say, this is what happened to people of color, this is what happened to black people, slaves, and these are the people who enslaved them. Those race, creeds, and colors still exist. And I guess you might have a part of society that's tired of carrying that burden. So rather than change the narrative to show people in the world that things have changed and progressed, Their fix is to erase who we are, where we came from, what we suffered. And they're very selective about doing it. And that is the most egregious form of racism and hate. I worry about United States of America falling apart, where the word united might be one day erased, not only in its meaning, but in its actual presence. Maybe they'll call it the something else States of America. Immigrants who come here for a better life. Most of them work hard and under circumstances that born Americans will not work, will not do tasks that people born in America will not do. The majority of people who get services in this country are not necessarily immigrants. Immigrants are proud people. Where we come from is not about not wanting to work. It's about wanting to achieve something and not being able to achieve it because of sometimes the population and size of those places we come from. When I came to this country, I wanted to study electronics in college. Back then, that's what it was. It wasn't computers, there was electronics was the thing. From a little kid, I was a gadget freak. I couldn't get it where I was. They offered a lot of liberal arts degrees and management and stuff. So I came here. I have never been in public service. I've had days when was down and out, and public service would have been a silver lining. But I didn't have it. I made it through. I'll tell you a story of mine personally for you to understand that even though I've been blessed and I still have a struggle, but I'm still a lot better off from where I started and where I came. I remember many years ago, I was in my 20s. I woke up one Saturday morning with nothing in my refrigerator, nothing to eat, and no money in my pocket. All I had, this was back then, was tokens to get me back and forth to work. I got up that morning and I prayed. I put my clothes on, took a shower with my clothes on. I can remember not really having a purpose for that day because I had nothing. I couldn't even go to the store and buy a soda. I remember going out to the front of the house. It was a sunny day. As I'm standing in the doorway, the mailbox was right next to me up on the wall. I was renting the first floor in a house. And I opened up the mailbox and there was one lone envelope in there. And in that envelope was a reimbursement check for $200 and something that I had overpaid. Now, you who want to call that coincidence, you can. All I'm going to say is God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. But look where we are today. It worries me that people have not accepted the reality and the truth of what happened over the last 4 or 6 years. It worries me that if former President Trump wins, that he plans to free all those people who created those egregious crimes by his command. What do you think those people become when the man that they were ready to die for frees them? You think they become loyal supporters? I say they become dangerous. What about the people who were doing what they felt was right in the law? And as he would say, weaponizing the system. They said following the law. As a possibility of being president, he has not talked about uniting and putting the past behind him, because we all have disagreements. He's talking about people will pay. That's personal. And then we've got the Supreme Court that he managed to have a huge influence on, given presidential immunity. We have a president like President Biden, who would not use presidential immunity under any circumstances. You have a president, President Biden, who has a son who has committed some offenses, and he said to the nation, I will not pardon him. Do you think that will happen if we have Republican presidents? Look, I've told you before that I have had known Republican presidents, or who have been here, who have had things I agreed with and things I disagreed with. I've said to you time and time again, I view myself as purely independent because there are things I like and dislike about both sides. But what's bothering me here is people are not even getting to sit down and make up their own minds. The media is playing a huge role in crafting the emotions and the roller coaster of people's emotions. I click on that little icon on my Windows computer, and the news comes up and all the breaking news. And they're boxes. And one says Trump's winning Texas and Florida by a landslide. Now that's a whole different subject, because Florida amazes me, because here's a man talking about deporting immigrants. Here's a man talking about even deporting naturalized citizens. And Florida's got a huge population of people who are immigrants, and they will vote for him. The citizens among them, that's it. We have a president who I'm assuming, I could be wrong, even though he hasn't been charged, even though he hasn't been sentenced, can he vote? Because I remember reading somewhere, once you're convicted, which he was in New York, you can't vote. So there's a possibility that I'm not sure about that, but somebody, can keep me honest about that. Many people hearing this, especially many of the MAGA population, will think I'm attacking their candidate, and I'm not. I'm just asking them to look within themselves and see the truth, because everybody is born with a truth. You could choose to ignore it and become so influence your own thoughts so much that your vision of the truth is so scarred. Can you imagine what will happen? I can't imagine, well, I can, I'll tell you why in a second, but initially I can't imagine any woman in the United States voting right now Republican, because they will undoubtedly be a huge push towards permanently removing the rights of women to choose in their own bodies. Yet I know of a group of women, one of them is married to a staunch Republican, so she's Republican. When you chat with her, you can see that she has views that are not Republican. But she's made it clear that she grew up, never worked a day in her life, married someone who is a staunch Republican, and her views are his views, not by choice, just by default. So she is fine with whatever her husband says, and he says, basically, it doesn't matter, there's only one way Trump, everything he says is right. We don't even say that about Harris. Everything he says is right. And when you ask her questions, she can't defend it. She says, well, that's what my husband believes, and that's how I grew up. That is what's crafting her thoughts, and that's what's dictating her votes. Forget for a moment that Kamala Harris is a woman of color. Let's just look at her gender. Do you understand what it is? Or does it have to happen to you where someone forcibly rapes you? You are married with children in a beautiful household. You went through an unfortunate incident where someone forcibly raped you and you got pregnant. And now universally, from the federal level, United States says you are going to have that child, whether you like it or not. You're going to deal with 9 months of all the things that women go through with their bodies, their minds, their emotions. You're going to give birth to this child. And if you can't stand the sight of this child, then you have the option to put this child for adoption. Well, what I just laid out to you is bad enough. But have you ever thought about what the system does to children? Many of our young people who are struggling, many of them have come through the system. The system has them sometimes packed in like herds because they can't find a proper adopted parents. Then they send them to homes of people who will keep them temporarily, people who have found out that they could be on public assistance, welfare, and then they can get a bunch of kids because they get a check for each child. The child still lives in poverty with just the mere minimum basics to get by, while they take the rest of the money they get from the government for their own lives, buy their car, travel, do whatever. And they keep getting more and more kids because they're not physically abusing these kids, or in most cases, if they are, the authorities don't know. But think of what they're doing to these kids mentally and emotionally. So here you are. Here are your choices as a woman in America today if you allow this to happen. Forget about every other voter, because it's my belief that if every single woman decided her body was her own and all the women voted for their bodies, for their right for choice, that almost is the end of the election. We wouldn't be talking about Texas and Florida and all these swing states. What are you swinging for? Is it a bunch of states with a bunch of male chauvinist pigs as men who have no care or kindness for a woman and her right as a human being? Is it a bunch of states who look down on women and feel that they're inferior? We as men don't have to give birth. We have no understanding of the emotional, physical, mental challenges of dealing with childbirth. There are many women out there who have a lot of children. There are many women out there who have one child and say, I can't deal with having another. I would have loved to have more, but I can't deal with it. We could never understand that. It's been said, and I believe it to be true, that there's no man out there who can truly bear the pain and has the inherent strength a woman has to have for natural childbirth. Yet we want the right, as some men who think that we have the right to stand Lord over women who were made by the same creator we were, and tell them what they should do with their bodies. Men want to argue that they were half of what made that child, so they should have a say. Well, we can't really argue for a say unless we're going to carry the child for 4.5 months. Maybe we have to carry it every other month to experience every single trimester and every single thing a woman goes through. If you're a woman in this country and you have to go behind your husband's back and vote for what's right, then you need to do it. If things don't turn out that way and women across this country suffer and women die because they perform abortions in the back room with a hanger, remember those days? When you have seen enough pain and blood, when the guilt is overwhelming and you realize that your vote had a part to play in what these people are suffering, it will be too late to change it. Again, MAGA folks, you have a right to believe what you believe. I am not attacking you. What I am attacking is the ideology that the Republican Party stands for right now, what they're standing on. If you want to talk about Christianity, you can't preserve what God decided. God is the only judge and jury. If I decide, as people have done unfortunately many times, to take their own lives, you're going to create a law that says, somehow they can't? Well, it won't matter, right? Because once they do, they're no longer here. Point being, you are not judge and jury. You don't have the right to decide what a multitude of people will have the right to decide of their own bodies. Could you imagine you as a family, these same conservative families who sit there and follow their husband's vote, even though deep down inside they know it's wrong? Would you like to be sitting at your dining table looking at 4 kids? 3 were made out of love with you and your husband. The 4th was a child that was a product of rape from a man who you despise, maybe someone who's in prison, maybe someone who's one of the worst criminals, someone who forcibly took something from you that you didn't say yes to. And now you're being forced twice. You're being raped twice. If you allow this to happen, You were raped when you were attacked, and you were raped again by the very government, the very country that you love. Let's talk about Project 2025 again. I still have to struggle hard to make ends meet and to move forward. I still deal with, I don't get the celebrity subscribers to this podcast. And even if I were exposed to that, I probably wouldn't, because people don't want to hear the truth. Everything I do from my heart to help others is with a struggle. I sit in front of a camera here that I'm still paying for because I'm not wealthy. And I bear the brunt of all this because I feel that it is important for a voice. When I say to you to like and subscribe and share, it's not about money. If tomorrow YouTube said to me they would give me 150 million subscribers so I could speak to everyone who's going to vote, and they would never give me a dime from it, I'd accept that. Because this is not about money. This is about how the quality of our lives and the chances that our children have and our next sets of generations to come. We cannot decide that after all this time, we're going to erase history. We're going to erase equality. We're going to erase the things that define inclusivity because they make you look bad, or you can't get to live in your superior world and flaunt the fact that while you sit on your 100-foot yacht and sip champagne, you can be on top of a wave and overlook the poor people scrambling to make ends meet and say, look at them, and laugh. You don't want anyone to be equal with you. You don't even want anyone to catch up. And the threat to everyone who believes in Project 2025, this ideology, has to do with people catching up. Has to do with the fact that no matter how many years you've tried, you can't get rid of the truth of what has happened, of the crimes you committed against humanity. And make no mistake about it. If you erase every single bit of Black history from schools, you will never erase Black history. You will never erase the journey that women have had to, and you will never erase the history of the men and women who died and fought for the right to be where we are today. And we are still struggling not to make America great again, just to get to the point where we make America great. Parents will always teach their children where they came from. And I urge parents, if any of this goes through, that you make it your point to teach your children. Don't let them go to schools and lose the knowledge and lose the history that makes us who we are today. If people with Republican ideology want to talk about their party being better, the ideology being better for all people, then honor me as a man of color. Honor women as women. Honor people, the LGBTQ, as who they are and human beings. Stand up for righteousness. And then we'll believe in you. And when your own doesn't do the right thing, someone stand up quick and fast and say, this is not who we are. So that we one day will believe that you have fought against those within who not only work to destroy your ideology, your party, and this great nation of ours, but you stand showing that you are in a righteous place and should be considered to lead us forward. Right now, there's a stark difference between the two sets of candidates that are running. And people seem to have lost their minds, their sense of decency, and their ability to decide right from wrong. Election day is 2 weeks away. May God have mercy on us. I thank you as always for allowing me to be a part of your home. Not sure if I'll speak with you before elections. Certainly will speak with you after. I pray that our God above, our Creator, despite us being unworthy, has mercy upon us so that generations to come have a chance to live the great life that the United States of America has promised us all. Until the next time, please do take care of yourselves and each other.